Welcome back. Today we're going to start looking at dependent and independent variables, which are very important parts of the function that you need to understand. Now the first thing we're going to do is we're going to list the three requirements for something to be a variable. The first of those requirements is that it must be an unknown. Okay, the whole point of it being a variable is we do not know what it represents. The next is that it must be able to vary. Kind of goes with the name. Variable has to be able to vary. It cannot be the same number every single time. And the final thing is it must be represented by a number. So there's your three things that end up being needed in order for it to be considered a variable. Now, with that in mind, we've got our input variables and our output variables here. It says determine the two variables in each situation. So right now we got Micah deposits $35 per month into his savings account. All right, so there's two things going on. One of those things is going to be how much money he's depositing per month, and the second thing is how many months he's depositing it. So they said that they're going to take and call the first one the number of months, and the second thing is going to be the amount of money. And this amount of money is not going to be the $35. This is the amount of money that he's going to have after a certain number of months of depositing that $35 per month. So the next one we have is Susie drives 30 miles per hour. There's one of your variables right there, the number of hours to get to the uncle's house. So we're going to take right here, and our very first variable is going to be the number of miles she drives. And then from there, we're going to take and be able to find out the number of hours that Susie travels, because you got miles per hour. There's a hint. Just like last one, we had dollars per month. One of our variables is going to be dollars. The other is going to be months. Here we have miles per hour. One of our variables is going to be miles. The other one is going to be hours. Our next one says that Spencer goes biking every morning. The further he bikes, the more calories he burns. So this one's a little bit different because what we have here is going to be a further. So what's further represent in a more mathematical word? Well, that further is going to be the distance. So the distance that he bikes, that distance is something that we can actually put a number to, so we'll call that the distance traveled. And then the second variable is going to be, you guessed it, the calories burned. Now we got ourselves a little take notice thing going on here, so we need to fill in our vocab words to go with this. And at this point, we're going to start picking up the terms independent and dependent. Your independent variable, whoops, I took and misspell that. Independent variable is going to be the variable that stands alone. It does not change by the other variable you're trying to measure. It is what I like to refer to as the goes in set. Okay, I misspelled that one again, so there you go. Independent variable, it's going to be your goes in set. The other variable is the goes out set. It's the variable that depends on what is put in for the independent variable. So you have the variable that's something that depends on other factors. The independent variable causes a change in the dependent variable. So whatever you do to the independent variable, whatever independent variable you put in changes what the dependent variable can be. So an example that they gave us here is that time spent studying causes a change in test score. So they have IV here for independent variable. They have DV here for dependent variable. And let's see if we can make that go down a little bit so you can see it over my head. So IV is your independent variable, DV is your dependent variable. The more time you spend studying, the more your test score is likely to improve. It isn't possible, however, for the test score to cause a change in the time studying. If we were to have a test score of 30, that is not going to affect how much time you spend studying. Don't get a 30 on my test. But the time you spend studying or not studying, that could totally affect whether or not you earn that 30. So let's take a look at the second page. We need to figure out what the independent variable and the dependent variable is. And they have it listed where the dependent variable is going to be the first one. The independent variable is going to be the second one. So our first question, Diego is having a party at Altitude Trampoline Park. His mom must pay $15 per person who attends. So what is going to be dependent variable and what's going to be the independent variable? Well, the independent variable is going to be your number of people. Okay, as the number of people changes, what is that going to affect? That is going to affect your total cost. Oh, misspelled that one. There you go. So that'll be your total cost. Next, we have Mill Creek's 8th grade class is planning an overnight trip to Six Flags, which will require hotel stay. The more students who go on the trip, the more hotel rooms they need. So the dependent variable right there is going to be how many hotel rooms they need. So that's going to be your number of hotel rooms. The independent variable is going to be what affects the number of hotel rooms, and that is going to be the number of students that are going to attend. See how that goes? The more students attend, the more hotel rooms. The fewer students attend, the fewer hotel rooms. Having more hotel rooms is not going to make more students attend, but having more students attend is going to require more hotel rooms. Lucas sets up a lemonade stand every weekend. Each cup of lemonade he charges 50 cents. So we got to figure out the dependent variable and the independent variable. So the dependent, what is the goal here? What are we trying to find out? Well, I think we're trying to find out is the money Lucas makes. Okay. And what's going to affect the amount of money Lucas makes? Well, that's going to be affected by not how much he charges, that's told us, but by the number of cups sold. We know that he's charging 50 cents per cup, but the number of cups sold times the 50 cents per cup equals the amount of money he's going to make. See how easy this is? Let's look at the next one here. Now we got Granny. At Kroger, Kroger's one of those Yankee grocery stores. At Kroger, Granny Smith apples cost $3.79. There it is, per pound. And that per pound, that is going to be the independent variable because that's going to be the number of pounds. And pounds is abbreviated LBS. We can blame the British for that. So the number of pounds bought is going to be our independent variable, and our dependent variable is going to be the total cost. Because we know that it's $33.79 times some number of pounds, and that's going to give us the total cost of those apples. We got one more down here at the bottom. It says on I-65, that's a major interstate going through Alabama, motorists tend to drive in 1 hour approximately 70 miles. That's a lie. Speed limit 70 miles per hour, but I've driven that interstate. People aren't driving 70 miles per hour on that interstate. So anyhow, what do we know? We know that the motorists tend to drive about 70 miles in 1 hour, being a speed limit of 70 miles per hour. So what is the independent variable going to be? That is going to be the number of hours that they drive, and the number of hours they drive times the 70 miles per hour. What's that going to give you? Your dependent, you could think of as total things. That's going to be your total distance that they're going to end up driving. Pretty easy, right? And that leads us to our final take notice. And the final take notice, we're going to take and say that the independent variable is graphed on the x-axis. Okay, we've talked about this before. Your independent variable is also known as your domain, and is also known as your x variable, so it's going to go on the x-axis. In the table of values, it is going to also be known as your input. And I'm going to just write domain in here in parentheses because it's also going to be your domain value. And then the next one says that your dependent variable is going to be graphed on your y-axis, and your dependent variable is going to be your output, and that's also known as your range value. So your range is your output, is your y value, is your dependent. And this is the only time that it's not alphabetical order in the first and last. So we're going to, if you remember, I talked about how independent, domain, and x all came before output, range, and y in the alphabet. But independent and dependent, it's not that way. It's going to be the opposite. So those you're just going to have to memorize. So what are you going to do from here? For your homework assignment, you've got, looks like, 4 questions to answer, and they're going to be pretty simple. You're going to be basically checking which one is going to answer each one. They might require you to do a little bit of explanation, but you definitely need to come back to class prepared to defend your opinion. I look forward to answering any questions you have in class tomorrow. I'll see you then.